something of a soft voice. So the book, of course, is the book edited by Emerentia du Plessis, Reflecting on Presence in Nursing, a guide for practice and research. So I think we'll deal with both those aspects. So by now, you of course know the Zoom drill in the Zoom room. So cameras off, audio off, and comments and questions in the chat box. You're most welcome. So good day, I'm Jaco Hoffman. I'm professor of social gerontology at Northwest University at a research unit, Optentia. Northwest University is a multi-campus university with around 64,000 students in 2019. So, and unique to this university is the institutional dream of Northwest University. And that is to be an internationally recognized university in Africa. We contextualized in Africa, distinguished for engaged scholarship, social responsiveness, and this is the uniqueness, an ethic of care. It's part and parcel of the vision of Northwest University. And Andries Baart, whom you will hear later this evening, so actually, pre-COVID, of course, did a beautiful presentation, a public lecture on the topic of the ethic of care at the University of Northwest. So beautiful conceptually and aesthetically. So have a look on the Optentia website and you will see that lecture once again. So part of the ethic of care, of course, should also be reflected in our research endeavors. And therefore, the launch of this beautiful book is very much embraced. So let's get things started. The panel for this launch is, of course, Professor Emerentia du Plessis, the editor and driving force for this collection, and Professor Andries Baart, the father of the conceptualization of presence, so to speak, and Ms. Kathleen Froneman and Professor Karin Minnie. So the program will entail, some welcoming remarks by Professor Minnie, Karin, after which Emerentia will give us a brief overview of the book, kind of a taster. So, and for us to get some sense of the book, Andries will also critically and conceptually engage with the idea of presence. After which, Andries and Emerentia you've got your wine glasses there. So without any further ado, I invite Professor Karin, Director of the Research Entity Quality in Nursing and Midwifery, to say a few words. And it's so special because Karin and I were in the same cohort of undergraduates in this sociology class. Karin.
Yes, thank you, Jaco. I remember those days. It was a long time ago.
Yes.
So yes, currently I'm the director of NUMIC. As you say, it's this research focus area for research, then specifically we aim to do research to improve quality, specifically for nursing and midwifery, but also we know that this specific topic is definitely not just for nurses and midwives, but for healthcare workers, but also wider for humanity. It's important that all of us care and show our caring and connect with others. And I'm sure you all know more about presence than myself. I've also written a chapter in this book specifically as midwife, as for compassionate maternity care, but I don't see myself as an expert in this area at all. So I want to say that it's really a privilege for me to also be part of this, and then to congratulate all the authors, and then specifically for Professor Emerentia, the editor, and as you say, driving force of this book. She really kept us all to the due dates, and she compiled the whole thing in the end. And I hope it really makes a difference in future. It's a beautiful book, and the compilation has very interesting topics, and I'm sure it will make a difference in research, be a guide for all. I see there's a number of postgraduate students also online, so welcome to you all. And then also eventually in practice, we do research to improve practice, not just for staying on the shelves, as we say, but we want to make a difference in practice. So that's my message, that I want to congratulate everyone. I'm proud this is part of also done as a research project, and then especially proud of Emerentia that took the initiative, and she's really an example of someone that drives a research project, but also make a difference in practice. So over to you again.
Thank you, Karin. So lovely to see you again. So, and now we, we'll straight move over to Emerentia. And Emerentia is Professor of Psychiatric Nursing Science, and of course, obviously work in the School of Nursing Sciences at Northwest University. She is, as we already know, focusing on presence in nursing, and provides supervision to postgraduate students broadly. And as Karin mentioned, a passion for translating research into practice. So Emerentia will now give us a brief overview, a taster of this book. Thank you, Emerentia, and congratulations. And ladies and gentlemen, Emerentia is on holiday, and of course she deserves it, absolutely. So thank you, Emerentia.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Prof Jaco, for the introduction, and Prof Karin for the welcoming. I am on holidays, and we don't have stable network where we stay, so we had to move to a noisy connection. So firstly, I want to say thank you for everyone for your presence, and you are most welcome. And I'm going to ask Kathleen to share my presentation that I pre-recorded. I hope that is in order, and thank you very much for everyone. Kathleen, should I talk through the presentation? Can everyone hear me?
Is Emerentia at 100%?
We hear you, Emerentia.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Kathleen. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so the inspiration for the book is that we started with present research about 7 years ago, and along the way we realized that we have valuable material that we can put together in a book. And this book is a guide to remind nurses to slow down and to be intentional when providing nursing care. And not only nurses, people from other disciplines as well. And then it's a collection of wisdom to help nurses think about connecting, attuning, finding meaning and joy, and be relational in their nursing care. Next slide. We can go to the next slide, Kathleen.
Emerentia, you maybe share the slide. It doesn't want to move on.
Okay, I will try. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the reviewer, Professor Charlene Downing, said that this book is the birthing of caring presence in South Africa and the international arena of nursing, caring and caring presence. While Professor Maria Greitung said that this collection gives words to the presence that is so often manifested and experienced in nursing care. It conceptualizes the presence that often remain unarticulated in nursing practice. It increases our understanding of the phenomenon. It provides hints and guides for researching the phenomenon so that our understanding of it and its adequate practice may increase. So we had positive reviews from the reviewers, and thank you to them. The book consists of 3 parts. Part 1 talks about the concept of presence and real life stories of presence. And then part 2 focuses on research methods. And part 3 offers a concluding chapter, reflecting on our journey and the way forward. So let's look at part 1. Chapter 1 is titled Presence, a Relational Approach in Nursing. And this chapter attempts to answer the crucially important question, what is the importance of presence in nursing? Presence brings healing in the patient, and for the nurse, presence is a way to rediscover the joy and meaning of nursing. Chapter 2 reflects on presence, and we share an account of an exposure. Myself and Ellie Bierkens. She was my mentor when I spent some time in practice and reflected on presence, and we learned valuable lessons, and I could match real life examples in my exposure and then the theory of presence. So it was a wonderful theory practice integration. This is some of the findings of the exposure, and this pamphlet is also available in the book. So you'll see that there's valuable information in the book. Chapter 3 is about ways to discover and internalize presence, and here Christelle, Disetsu, Kathleen and Rudo all share their knowledge about how to cultivate presence in nursing. They all did research on how to cultivate presence in nursing, or they are busy with such research. So this is also a valuable chapter to look at. Chapter 4, Karin shares her wisdom on compassionate maternity care and how it can be promoted in a context that demands much from nurses, namely maternity care. And presence is seen as a core element of compassionate care. Chapter 5, Jan helped us with this chapter, Jan den Bakker with myself and Babsi, and the very important topic of nursing care management through relational leadership. And we learned much from Jan in writing this chapter. The second part of the book is about research on presence, and this first chapter in this part, chapter 6, is a golden nugget for future reference on how to do research on presence. So this is a wonderful chapter in our book and a very meaningful resource to have about how to do research on presence. Chapter 7, we share a first example of when we did one of our first studies on presence. So we share, me and Jennifer reflect on our research project. Chapter 8, another research project from a quantitative viewpoint as well as a qualitative viewpoint. We share about 2 studies by Lillian and Rosalind and how these studies focused on preventing relapse in mental health care users and taking presence into account, how presence can play a role in preventing relapse. So this is also a wonderful example of research we did on presence. Then chapter 9 is another golden nugget by Professor Andries Baart and Professor Jaco Hoffman, and they did some advanced research. So if you want to look at a wonderful example of what can be done in a very advanced and in-depth manner on presence and research connected to that, this is a wonderful chapter to look at. The last chapter, here in this chapter, we compiled our knowledge and wisdom so far. And I'm sure that this chapter will in future be reviewed and adopted and refined. So we share our journey so far and we end off with these guidelines, the dream guidelines, and sharing this wonderful resource with you. So thank you for this opportunity. Sorry for the noisy background, and thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you so much, Emerensha. This is a lovely overview. And you will understand if I say that you are the one that really needs to get your audio muted. So for the rest of the program. So thank you so much. So for this overview, and you know, you just make me realize again what a beautiful piece of work this is. So I should actually page through all of these chapters again. Next in line is a wonderful colleague and friend of not only mine, but also Northwest University and South Africa broadly, Andries Baart. And Andries is, by way of speaking, the father of the conceptualization of presence. So Andries, one of the founder member of Stichting Presensie, the Presence Foundation. So, and visiting professor at the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Utrecht. And then something we're very proud of, also extraordinary professor at Northwest University, the Optentia Research Unit. So Andries, you are dear to us, and we are really looking forward to your presentation. Many thanks, and we're excited to have you.
Thank you, Jaco, for the opportunity to be part of this group, this audience, to witness the birth of a book introduced by the professor in midwifery. So that's a good coincidence, I would say. Well, they asked me to say a few words about presence, and I've prepared that, and now I'm going to vanish from the screen, but you get something better in place of it, and that is my PowerPoint. So I try to change, and then you get the PowerPoint. I trust that you all can see it. and that it is clear. And what I'm going to do in the next half an hour is very simple. I want to explain as simple as I can what presence is, what presence in nursing is, and I want to comment a bit on the misunderstandings or burning issues that are related to presence. If you have at the end of my lecture something more than a fake idea of what the book is about and what presence is about, then I would say that my objective has been achieved. To be honest, I have been very much puzzling how to explain presence for a mixed audience, some of them very much learned about the presence, the other ones not introduced. And I have used a model previously developed by my colleague Jan den Bakker, and I made a few comments. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about a presence with what I call care's stairs. I'm going to give you a few stairs of caring, and then in the end you will see how it leads to presence. On the first stair, we are looking at care that is what I would say rough care. That's care that is not done very well. It is a kind of care that what we call is adding suffering to people that are already suffering. You may say it's cruel care, or it is neglecting care, or it is not attentive at all. To be honest, you may say, well, is that existing anywhere? Yeah. On all the places where I have done my research, I always see this kind of rough care. People are very busy with themselves. They have no time. They are very self-oriented. And even in the hospital where I'm working nowadays, I see examples of rough care. It's a little bit better when we come to the stage or the stair of cold care. If people are providing care in a cold way, so to say, then you can say they do it rather impersonal. They see the patient as an object or a thing. They do it in a distant way. So it's not adding cruelty to the patient, but it's cold. And as you know, most of our patients not just need some solution of problems, they need also some human warmth. So still, that second phase, that second stair is not what we would call good care. And so I arrive at the third stair. You are going to get 7 stairs. So you know what you are waiting for. Somebody is not muted. I hear all kinds of noises. On the third stage, then I would say that care is okay. You can see that I made a dotted line. So I would say now we are above the surface. We are beyond the boundary of care that is good. So that care is good, you could say. It is given adequately. But you could say it's rather oriented on tasks, rather task-oriented care. Or you could put it another way. What they are doing, those nurses, those doctors, those carers, nothing wrong, but not very good either, not very extra either. So that's the third stage. So I come to what I would call kind care. We recently had the launch of a book about kindness in Optensia, and it inspired me for that fourth stair, so to say, in care. That care is given with attentiveness. It's given very friendly. It is, so to say, polite or courteously, so to say, and it is rather sensitive to your needs. The nurse that is giving kind care is much better than rough care, cold care. It's even better than okay care. It is kind. They see your needs and they are attuning to your needs, so to say. And so we come to the fifth stair, and I would say there we are talking about service, as Jan de Bakker states it. Then you say, well, we are not just giving care, but we are willing to serve the patient. And when it is necessary, to walk with the patient the extra mile. So to do more than just okay care, to do more than just kind care. It's even better. So there we have already very good care, I would say. And you can see the color is changing from blue to a little bit reddish, and it is going to be very red indeed in the end. Then on the sixth stair, I would say there we have decent kind. As it comes to decency, then another lecture would be very helpful, but for me, and referring to specific philosophers, I would say decent care tries to avoid humiliation, tries to avoid people that they feel worthless or social redundant. So they try to honor the patient, not just honoring the person of the patient, but even the patient's knowledge, even the patient's morals, even the patient's desires. So as you can see, we are going up from rough care to cold care to okay care, and then service, but you can do more than service, and you can give decent care. And then at the end, and there we have the red stair, so to say. There we are talking about care that is structured, steered and structured from the relation of the nurse and the patient. That is what I would call relational care. So what I try to do in this half an hour is to explain to you that, of course, we may talk about care, but if you are looking closer to the practices of care, then you may say, perhaps we have 7 stairs, or 6, or 5, or 8. So, but anyway, some of the stairs are beneath what we would call the boundary of good care. It is beneath the boundary of what we would call sufficient, and 5 of them are below or are above that boundary, and even more better and better and better. So that is my background. And if I come to the next sheet, then you would say, if you look to the left side, so the first 2 stairs, then you would say that kind of care is very much oriented to the self of the professional. The professional is busy with himself or herself. What can I do? How many energy? Is it interesting me? Do I want to give it energy or not? So self-oriented. If you go further on the stair, then you get care that is very much task-oriented. They say what we have to do is to administer specific acts as a nurse. So let's do those tasks in a decent way, or so to say, and that's what we have to do. But if you go up the stairs, then you get the patient-oriented care. As you can see, it starts with self-oriented. So those are the nurses very much referring to themselves and then referring to tasks, but then become in the stages where they are referring to the patient. They are patient-oriented. Who is that? What he's suffering for? What he's longing for? And things that. And then in the end, we have the much more relation-oriented care. So for me, going up the stairs to the right side is the shift of the focus of the care. Focus from busy with yourself, busy with the patient, busy what we, the two of the, have. So if I go to the next sheet, then I will say that the more you go to the right side of the stairs, the more you are doing fully fledged presence. So if you would say I'm on step 4, then I would say bravo. You are beginning to do presence, you are beginning to do relational care, but there is more possible than you actually are doing. So if you are on stage on step 4 or 5, then I would say beautiful. It's even more like what we would like as relational care, as presence, etc. So presence is not just the right side, of course. That is the utmost what you can do. But all those stages before it are very, very helpful. And if you are on the large stage, the other stages are included. Let's ask another question. If you look to this stair, then you may ask the question, is the care receiver taken seriously? And then I would answer, if you are very much on the left side, I would say no, no, no. And if you are very much on the right side, I would say, yes, the care receiver is taken very, very serious. And taking serious, I mean his knowledge, his morals, his emotions, his longings, and things like that, not just his or her body. So you may ask another question. Here you have the yellow one. Who is in the focus? What is in the focus? And it will not surprise you, but I would say on the left side, the carer is in the focus of the practice of caring. And then I would say, so half away, the focus is very much shifted to the care receiver. And then in the end, I go to the right place, and then I would say the focus is on their relation. So perhaps you would expect it that the care receiver would be at the right side, but it's not what we think about. We think that on the right side should be their relation, both, so not the end. So let's talk about another question, the degree of coercion. As we know, all kind of care has some coercion in it. So you have to be in the time and at the office and in the language of the doctor or things, so the coercion. What about the coercion? I would say on the left side, we have rather violent forms of care. The phenomenon of care is rather coercive, so to say. And then I would say compassionate care is much more to the right side, but it is not the ultimate. On the ultimate, I would say we have the mutual arranged care. And I can explain you why we see that in this way. If you are on the left side, just one side of the relation, of the extreme, so one pole of the relation dominates. The dominating is there, the side of the professional. I should close the music of my machine. And then you would say that as it comes to compassionate care, then you are just shifting to the other pole, the pole of the patient. So from one pole to the other pole. But what we would like in presence is that both poles give an input in what care is and how to do care. If possible, an equal input. So you see, I tried a little bit to play with the figure of the stairs. Of course, you may, if you look to the stairs, ask yourself, yeah, that could be a good instrument to understand the care we are giving and to analyze our own care. But if you want to, you may analyze yourself. You may do that personally, you may do that as a team, you may do that in a specific care. Sometimes you would say, well, if I look to our team, unhappily, we have just one nurse that's giving rough care. It's a pity, but it's true. So you can see I'm imagining a team. I'm not talking about a team in more especially. And then you would say most of our nurses are on the okay care. They do the job good, in task oriented, not too warm, they don't have the time and the means to do that. And we have a few nurses that are much more oriented to kind care, and then on the surface we have two, and then on the decent care, oh no, oh, we have just another one for the relational care, and we forgot one. There's another one for okay care. Of course, I'm playing with the figure, but what I try to say is not just a stare for conceptual purposes. You may look to your own care or to your own practice or to your own person or to your own team and say, let's look, where are we on the stair? How much do we make progress to the right side? That about the idea of what presence is approximately. Then I am going a little bit more in detail. Why should we do anyhow anything like presence? Why should we climb the stairs? Well, I would say it's much better for the patient. If you do so, if you go more to the right side of the stairs, then the patient will receive much more appropriate care. And that is care that is helpful in his or her life. So it's not helpful in general, but in a specific life. And I would say, and the patient is feeling heard and seen, feeling being recognized. But it is even better for the care process. If you are going up the stairs, then we are avoiding mismatches. And as you know, mismatches is meaning you are giving care, but the care is not relevant for the patient. It's good care or not good care, it's okay care or kind care, but it's not relevant. So it's a mismatch. And it's better for the process because the more you go on the right side, up the stairs, we try to restrain the power of the carer on whom the patient is dependent. So if you are interested in power and if you are interested in care, you should be interested in power too, then I would say more up the stairs is more restraining the power of the professional. But it is even better for you as a nurse. The more you go to the right side, the more nurses can feel satisfied and have the feeling we are doing a meaningful job. That is why we want to be a nurse. And I would say it's even better for society. The whole machinery of caring is in the end the machinery of how can we live together with all different people. Caring is about society. It's about who is part of society, who is worthwhile, who is marginalized, etc. So I would say going up on the right side is better for society. Last week we visited a museum and we saw there 38 life-size drawings. The drawings that you are seeing here have the height of 3.5 meters. So 2-3 meters, something like that. And they are all drawn by Jan van Herwijnen. He did that so approximately 100 years ago. And he was drawing psychiatric patients. And he started there because he himself was an inpatient in a psychiatric hospital, and they impressed him. And he made, mind you, 38 of those drawings. You can imagine if you come into the museum and you see all those drawings, the first after the one, after the next, after the next, that's impressing. But on one of the walls, you can read next, please look, that is what he was saying in next. I read it first in Dutch and then in English. Je moet niet tegen ze praten, maar wel een zootje liefde vanuit je donder op ze sodemieteren. That's rather rough Dutch. That is not very polite what he is saying there. And it is very politely translated in English. You must not talk to them, but instead shower them with all the love you can give them. So I had to think about those drawings and about that quotation of Jan van Herwijnen when I was preparing this lecture. Shower them with all your love and do it in a professional way, I would say. Let's go to the next question. Not just why should you, but is it possible to be present? Sometimes people say, no, I love to do it, and it is beautiful to do it, but I can't do it. We don't have the time, we don't have the means, or the system is not appropriate to do things like that. And then they ask me, do you have an answer to that? Now, of course, I'm not a witch. I don't have witchcraft to do wonders and things like that. But let's be clear. A presence is not necessarily a time-consuming or expensive activity. That it could be time-consuming, it could be expensive, but it needs not. Sometimes you can do in the same time that you are doing okay care, you could do kind care. Or in the same time that you are doing kind care, you can do service-oriented care. So I would say the best thing is to go and to do it in the most radical way. So that is the reddish right side of the stair, but do it according to your possibility. It's good to start in gray or yellow or in pink. So do it according to your thing, and don't think we have some restrictions and I do nothing. Of course, a good beginning is a good beginning. Other people say to me, yeah, but I think it's a luxury. It's not essential to do it. Well, I would say, and then read the book, I would say, that depends on what you think that care is. If you think that care is just repairing physical things that are that needs repairment, then yeah, of course, then we don't need presence. But if you think that those repairs are taking place in a patient, and that patient has his own life and its own longing and its own history and its own suffering and its own memory, then you would say, of course we can't do without presence. How to give any care if we are not relating in a relational way to a patient? That is what caring is about. Caring is not about repairing. Caring is relational. Other people say, well, you are writing all those books beautifully, but you have to have the character to do it. And then they say, well, it's not my nature. Excuse me, but I'm a little bit impatient. I'm very much, so to say, business-like oriented. People say, I can't do it. Then we have good news. And the book, in the book you can read about the good news. You can learn it. You can be trained it. You can think about it. You can reflect about it. You can get better and better and better. Another misunderstanding or hesitation is that they say, well, yeah, of course I can be present with palliative patients, very easy. Those very sleepy people, easy. Essential, but can I be present to very complicated people that behave in a bad way? I'm working on a psychiatric ward in an academic hospital. We have all kinds of very, very difficult people. Then we say in presence, the more difficult people are, the more we need presence. Of course, with the simple patients, we understand immediately what you have to do. But if they are complicated, then you have to look for, please mute. Then you need presence even more than you needed in other things. And then the other question is that people say, well, we are doing that as a nurse practitioner. Is that enough? And I would say, no, it's not enough. If you are doing it as a practitioner, then you need you are in need of management or a CEO or quality officer that is present too. So if you are present in an horizontal level, then we need even present functionaries in a vertical line. So I come to my last question: misunderstandings. Presence, what is it? Is it a personal virtue? Is it an attitude? And we would say, no, 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 no. Of course, the virtue is helping. Of course, the attitude is helping. But it is, in the end, the practice. It is how we behave. It is how we are dealing with the building, how we are dealing with the time, how we are dealing with our means. It is, in the end, not only a practice or a bunch of practices. It is, in the end, a political bunch of things. It is an answer to the question, who matters? Some people say, but it's very simple, isn't it? And then we would say, well, presence is not that simple. Of course, people say, if I'm just a good human, then I am present. Yeah, some good humans are present, that's true. But I would say our challenge is to do a very simple thing in a professional way. So being present as a professional is not that easy, so to say. And then people say, can it be applied? We have a beautiful book here, and we have beautiful books here in the Netherlands. And they say, please give me a recipe. Just give me the recipe, give me the rules. And if you give me the rules and the recipes, then I will do it. And then that's just a question of copy and paste, copy and paste. And we say, no, that's not how we do it with presence. So to speak, we say, we know the principles. That's not a good word, but nevertheless, we know the principles. And in every situation, in every village, with every patient, we have to find out what those principles will mean in this specific case. And then are people that say, well, presence, what is it in the end? Is it a kind of philosophy? Is it a kind of a moral system? What is it? Is it practical? And then we would say, yes, it's very practical. And if I may speak for myself, I, as Jaco correctly formulated it, I am the father that is theorizing about practices, but we find that practices in we find presence in the practices that we are researching upon. So I am not the inventor of practices. Good nurses, good pastors, good social workers turned out to be practice professionals, so to say. So yes, it's very practical. It's not just a kind of philosophy. And then in the end, I would say the last question is it just a professional thing? And then we would say, yes, it is professional, but no. In presence, the personal factor, so to say, is a very relevant. So we want people that are practicing presence, that they are congruent with what they preach. Behave, be what you preach. That is presence too. So far in half an hour, a very global and I would say simplified, but I hope realistic introduction in what presence is. And that is the practice that we have described in the book. And it's very deep. And I would say, let's come to question and answers. And I hope that my presentation is helpful in understanding what the book is all about. Back to Jaco.
Yeah. Andries, thank you so much. And my goodness, again, typically Baartiaans. So we had our analytical step-by-step exploration, but how clear and always, as I know, Andries, the aesthetics also and art part of it. So thank you very much, Andries. And let's go to questions and answers. And Emma Renshaw will join us. dealing with some of this. Let me just see in the chat box, please post some questions or comments, and or raise your hand. And I immediately see Lillian Kalimashe raising her hand. So Lillian, please let us see you and let us hear you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We hear you, Lillian.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to appreciate what Prof Andries just explained now. It kind of made sense a lot, especially when he answered the question that said presence gives principles. It gives a recipe. It doesn't give answers in a way, but it gives you a recipe. Then with that, it and also gives a picture that with each and every person using presence, it would depend on the context. It's also contextual, which at some point, my supervisor, which is Prof Imerentia, tried to explain to me that presence gives more meaning when you do it qualitatively because of certain reasons. Now I'm trying to add what Prof Andries just said to say, presence gives you principles that you still need to go out there and utilize and construct the situation or construct answers based on the context that you'll be using the principles in. And I think that kind of gave me light and gave me some a clear picture as to why is it so much of a qualitative concept more than a quantitative. Because in my head, I've always asked, why shouldn't we be measuring how much instead of looking at the how part? I wanted the how much. So, but I think I've received a lot of answers and clarifications. Thank you for that, Prof. Andries.
Lillian, thank you. Let's give Andries and Emerentia an opportunity to comment on your comments, Lillian.
May I start, Emerentia? Is that
Yes.
okay? Okay.
Andries, welcome.
Well, thank you very much for this, yeah, I would say support to what we are saying there. I'm very much interested why you are giving support. Is it out of theoretical presuppositions or is it out of your experience? So do you have the experience that it is possible to have those principles and see in situation by situation by situation what you have to do? Please, may I ask you, Lillian, to elucidate why you are agreeing upon those principles.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Baart. The reason why I'm agreeing with the principles was that with my initial study that I did, it was more of a quantitative study. Now, having to move away from that and trying to move with the same study to my PhD, when I kind of read a lot on relational leadership, relational care, and all that, it brought me to an understanding that the principles themselves, it's not about taking them as they are, but they are a guide more than just saying a copy and paste kind of situation. You need to understand how you're going to utilize them in order for you to get the results that are required. That is relational care. You cannot take it as Prof Baart said, presence is an intersubjective. It needs to be, what does intersubjective mean to you as a person, as a nurse in that particular situation? I would make an example that a situation of a psychiatric patient, me being a psych nurse and once having been an educator, the principles will be applied differently because the contexts are different. Because being an educator, I would be dealing with students. my relationship with them or my relation to them would be different, as much as I would be using the same principles of presence that I would have read in their literature. Yes.
Thank you very much for your answer, and perhaps later on the discussion that Kathleen Froneman will say anything about it, because she is some of those educators.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Andries, I would love you to just again use that beautiful metaphor of the backpack and the grocery shopping trolley.
Yeah.
So, because I think it relates to this.
Well, I have learned from my dear colleague, Professor Grijpdonk, that she said to me, if you want to explain to people what relating to people means, then you may use the metaphor of the trolley. And they say, well, if you have all the things that you have learned, all the books that you have read, and all your good intentions, if you take it with you like a trolley that you use in the malls, then you will never reach the patient, because between yourself and the patient is your trolley with good intentions, with books, with reports and things. And then she said, you have to learn our students, you have to learn the students that all they have learned, all their books should be done in their backpack. And then they have the room in the front of them to relate to the patient and then say, I come near to you. I want to see you. And if I understand you out of the relation, then I take from my backpack whatever is needed. So what you are able to should not be carried before you. You should have it on your back, and dependent on the relation or the relationship steered understanding, you take from your backpack whatever is needed. One of the implications is this: you should have a well fed, a good backpack full of books and knowledge. If you have nothing to be, then you have not. So that was the metaphor, Jaco.
Yeah. So thank you, Andries. Emerentia, any comments from your side on Lillian's reflection?
Thank you. I just want to thank Lily for her comments and thinking along and making us think and asking questions. So thanks, Lily, and we'll continue the conversation.
Yes. What a lovely supervisor and student, So any other comments and questions, colleagues? This is now the chance. So especially the students working on this. Andries, while they're thinking, so maybe in this context, because it's contextual and it's relational, so the whole idea of presence in the COVID situation, so and this virtual world we're all in. So some reflections on maybe presence and the virtual world.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to think about that. So now on this specific moment, or in this month, we are very much studying and researching upon loneliness. So if you are interested in relational care, then you are, by contrast, interested in loneliness. And you can see that in the month, people were related to one another by digital means, and they have opportunity to chat with one another, to see one another, but that's not filling the gap that they are feeling. So it's very interesting that when, well, the functionality of the digital means is turning out not to be a good solution for loneliness. You may have all those digital, virtual means, and it's not an answer to loneliness. And that's where we have to think about, what is relation? Relation is much more than now I'm seeing you, what is a pleasure, but it well, it's another thing than to have the free opportunity to chat, to think, to smell, to see, etc., etc. And I'm very much interested in all forms of loneliness that we are now meeting as a result of Corona, or we have to say those forms of loneliness that were already there, but that are very much activated or brought to the surface by Corona. So my interest, and I'm reading on a daily basis, as good as it gets, the paper, one of the papers of South Africa. Loneliness in South Africa is a very complicated phenomenon, very much, I would say, tied up with poverty. So poverty, being alone, even when you have a good cell phone, is not an answer. So, well, if we have the possibility to study loneliness in Optentia, we should do it.
Yeah, so maybe a next project of
Yeah,
some kind. So, colleagues, any questions further? Any comments? Andries, then while they're still thinking, you have to think quickly, colleagues, because I'm running out of questions. So, so while people are still getting their minds together, I also wondered about, this whole idea of, the importance of the relationship, huh? And there is somehow a beautiful movement, also in the aging sector, to move a bit away from the so-called person-centered care to relational-centered care. So hugely important, and that's what presence is about. So, but then Andries and Emmerensha, any comments on the relationship with the structure or the system? You just alluded to it very briefly. So I can't do it because of the system. But that relationship with the individual, with the system, and the implications for the idea of presence.
Well, if I may, then I start, and if Emmerensha wants to say anything about it, please say so. Jaco, I want to start with a little correction, if I may. So most people think in the same way as you do. They say, well, presence is about the relation. But we have found out, we have learned, by blaming and shaming, but we have learned in the end that we should not say presence is about the relation or relationship, it's about relationality. Yeah. So the difference is, if we are thinking about the relation, then we are thinking about a thing, a substantive. And we would say relationality is not about a thing, it's about a verb. It's a way of how you look, it's a way of how you behave, it's a way of how you interpret, etc., etc. So it's just a minor correction, and then I come to the.
Oh, absolutely, thanks.
Yeah, but well, for us, well, because most people interested in presence, they take the handbook of relations, and then you get stuck into psychological chat about trust and things like that, and how to behave and how to look in the eyes and how to be empathic. So that's not nonsense, but that's not the thing. And now I come to the essential part of your question. So it's a verb, it's a way of doing, it is practice. And because it is practice, it should be seen in all those practices where it is taking place. So we try to see presence within the societal practices where it takes place. So those are the practices of politicians, of insurances, the practices of the management, the practices of etc., etc. So presence is a practice in the midst of other practices. And then your point is very, very essential. So it is not that you can do on practice without politics or without the societal horizon, or so to say. You are always in it. And so, to be honest, I wrote to Emerentia after the book was published that I was happy with the book, but I was not happy with the cover. This is the cover. And that's because I said, Emerentia, of course, it is a beautiful cover and you may leave it, but the suggestion that presence is something of the flower power, that it is something romantic, or it is something mixed up with sweet feelings is not true. It's a rather, I would say, serious business about social justice, about poverty, and things like that. And we even look much more to people that are socially redundant because of neoliberalism and things like that, than that we are interested in people that may support themselves. So I think that the political question, in which context are we doing presence, is essential if we try to understand presence. Presence is not a romantic, solipsic, isolated thing.
Care is political.
Yeah, care is political. Yeah.
So, Emerentia, your comments. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the question. I agree that it's so important to take the system into account when you do research on presence, and that is what Lily is aiming for in her PhD under supervision of Professor Lepele Seularu, and also including Jan den Bakker in her study and myself, to think about in primary health care, the system of managers and how we can understand their way of doing and their way of thinking so that we can start introducing presence and relational care and work from there. We've learned so much from the Presence Foundation team in how to approach research on presence and how to approach presence so that we do it in a firm way, but also in a relational way, so that we first try to understand what is in place and who is in place and who is there, and from there try to introduce presence.
Yeah. Thank you. So Lily, Lily and I noticed that you wanted to say something, and Emerentia referred to you. So maybe you should have the last word as a student, and how appropriate. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Yes, I just wanted to, it was actually a question to Prof Baart. I'm not sure if he will have time to answer it. It was, how would you say one can, with relational, let me say relational leadership, how would one link it, be it direct or indirect, with relational care, as in the leaders, in terms of the top-down or the down-top approach? Because in most cases, as much as, like for this study that we are anticipating, we want to introduce a relational care from the perspective of leaders, or managers. Yes. So I wanted to, how would you define, or how would one explain the relational leadership and relational care? How would you say whether it's an indirect or a direct link between the two?
Thank you, Andries.
Well, if I understand the question well, I should say that we should ask Jan den Bakker. He is attending this meeting, and he's very much specialized in the question of relational leadership. So I don't know, Jan, if you are able to go into the question if so, I would give the question to you if you don't mind.
I was
Jan, most welcome. Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much, Jaco, and all the others. I thought the question would come probably my side.
Yeah.
So what we are teaching management leaders in the Netherlands is we have 5 goals. The first goal is, as Andries mentioned in the 7 stairs, is to understand what presence is. What kind of step the seventh step is in the concept of Andries. So managers do have to understand that there are different kinds of care and that presence has a specific condition and demand specific is a specific practice, and managers do have to understand that and appreciate that. That's the first thing. The second thing is that when you ask your professionals to behave in a present way to their patients, you can also ask managers to behave in a present way to their colleagues and to their nurses. So that's the second thing. And then you come to a third way, and Emerentia mentioned it already. Managers are often in a position when they are dealing with the systems context, I would say, so with the rules and regulations of the government. So they have also can make people give them space to behave in a present way. So they are not also doing it themselves, but they are preparing a space, giving space to nurses, so they have the ability to behave in a present way to their patients. And yeah, I don't have 7 steps, but I have 5. So 2 more, a little bit short. One way is also that when managers in an organization understand presence, they can also, as a collective of managers, can help people and help the organization in a way to change the situation where people can behave in a present way. So they can make a deliberative effort to make room and space in the organization as nurses can behave in a present way. And the last thing, this is the very last thing, that they also need to voice what present is to their financial stakeholders, to the government stakeholders. So they have to indeed make a voice, understand it and tell it. And that's also a task of managers. So that's 5 points we elaborate and pick up in a training or for managers in the Netherlands. And I think that's possibly also a way perhaps for South Africa.
Yeah. Thank you, Jan. So Lillian, between Andries's 7 steps and Jan's 5 points, I guess you will somehow get there. So good luck with your PhD and this proposed study. So, colleagues, let's move on. I just did Emerentia leave us? Kathleen, maybe if you could just say something when we do the toast about where people can act and how people can access the book. So colleagues, without any other business on the agenda, we're moving over to Kathleen that will give a toast. But before she does that, I would like you to just put on your videos, all of you, so that we at least see each other and toast each other and congratulate each other and specifically all the authors. Thank you. So Kathleen, over to you.
Thank you, Prof Jaco. Everyone can agree with me regarding the importance of practicing presence. So I would like to leave you with this wonderful quote that I came about, and this is really for me, this is showing me what is important. Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest accomplishment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around. So if I can ask everyone, let's raise a glass to the future of practicing presence. Cheers.
So cheers. So congratulations on the book.
Yes.
So to everybody, what an achievement. So thank you very much. Thank you, Kathleen. So please, so if you're interested in presence and related concepts such as relational care and relational leadership in healthcare, do get the book. So it's from Cambridge Scholars Publishing, and of course edited by Emerentia Duplessis, reflecting on presence in nursing, a guide for practice and research. Congratulations. And the book is launched and now you have to read it. So all the best, and you all keep well, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof Andries, also, Prof Jaco, Kathleen.
So, bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.